Welcome back, guys. Um, for those who celebrated today's Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone who celebrates that type of thing. And people of conscience, um, maybe you could keep in mind what Thanksgiving really is, not what they want you to think it is. People getting together, having a feast. It's not the Thanksgiving for Native Americans. You know, it's it's a thing that's been glossed over historically speaking. Families get together and talk about football or politics or how thankful they are. Well, not realizing that sometimes in history, governments relabel things or rebrand things. They can rebrand events in history. They can rebrand, how do you say, people's ideologies, figures. I mean, how many times have we seen in recent time a person passes away and each particular denomination or news group talks about them and their particular perspective of that person, what they wanted to say they represented. It's the manipulation of reality, wherein many people think about time, but time is relative to where you are in space, not just physical space, but where you are in mental space. So in reality, to gain the sociological perspective of what's really going on and what we're actually observing, one needs to see happenings. One needs to see how it affects them. One needs to see what the mood and attitudes of the people and the leadership are. So in reality, I would say more superior to a timely perspective is understanding those things. I would call that seasons. Yes, we have seasons, 4 seasons on Earth, right? That are not limited to time. Time is a creation of the sun, the moon, and the stars that give us, our time, the 24 hours of a day now, Gregorian, but also gives us where the time is in terms of a celestial perspective on a set time span. However, seasons are more like certain things happen which give rise to this potential outcome. Or if I put so much salt on my meat, this is what's going to happen. And this is what's going to happen to my body. So why am I saying that? Well, on this YouTube page, I talk about One Piece, but I talk about One Piece in such a way that lets me talk about real things, real concepts and themes. Um, One Piece is not meant to be a super serious or romantic anime, per se. When you look at the injustices of the world that go unnoticed until people in power that have the megaphone bring it into our consciousness, that in a way is a manipulation. It's a chose upon manipulation. The general population, because many of us are so busy trying to survive, work for the big man, work for the man, work a job, raise our kids, uh, maintain shelter, the lower things. Philosophizing about what's really going on and the manipulations that happen to us daily are, for the most part, beyond our scope because it's not even in our wavelength of consciousness per se. Therefore, that being, if consciousness is light, outside of our consciousness is darkness. So if we recognize Thanksgiving for what has happened, and don't gloss over that, and don't let our kids grow up blind, dark, in the darkness to the manipulation, because that's a form of initiation. In One Piece, Blackbeard goes to Impel Down. First off, he went through all the rites of passage. He became a warlord. He bowed to the government, gave them a wanted people. He became a seven warlord. Then he dropped the seven warlords and he um, went into Impel Down, betrayed the government, with the army. The people Impel Down, in essence, became an initiation into his crew. They were baptized to hate the government. They were baptized in such a way when they came out, These guys were ready for some war. There's a lot of talk now about this so-called MAGA movement. Very interesting, the MAGA. Um, there are a lot of good people there, a lot of good intentions there. Um, uh, Donald Trump is a very intelligent person. Every intelligent person and successful person have certain personality things that make them successful. For example, um, people that become very successful kind of don't sleep in. They're kind of proactive. They think. They find effective ways to do things better. And that's the positive parts of it. But we all have personality things. Look at Nikola Tesla. He could not have accomplished what he felt he could not accomplish what he did if he lived a normal life and got married and had kids. He said it would be too much energy sucked away from him. Therefore, the romantic part of it is existence that he could have had, the relationships that he could have had, didn't have all the different flavors or seasoning to it to make that part of his experience while he was here. Now, with all these January Sixers who went to the Capitol, and whether rightly or wrongly, there's film on that was been suppressed, and now it's coming out. These guys are in prison, and they're not in country club prison for billionaires, you know, who robbed the people and went to country club prison, you know, where they have sewing classes. Some of these guys are going into isolation. They're going to the hole. They're going to solitary. Some of these guys are getting bullied in there. Some of these guys have a understanding that maybe they had good intentions, or maybe they, you know, um, maybe they went there to do something they thought was really great, you know, and they have sympathizers, parts of the government is fragmented too. People say, well, we respect what you went in there for. But the mistreatment and the injustice sometimes breeds certain negative attitudes. And when you have certain types of people that have been initiated or baptized, not a baptism that makes a person holy, but a baptism like slavery. Imagine the feeling of people being enslaved in this country for 400 years and then observing all these different groups give reparations, and then observing uh, Robert F. Kennedy say, well, reparations for blacks is unconstitutional. Well, didn't the Japanese get reparations? Didn't other groups, like from the Holocaust, did they get reparations? They should have if they didn't. So it's unconstitutional for us. Therefore, we have not been able, as African Americans and really Native Americans, to ever be reparated for the grievances and the war crimes that happened. Not just war crimes. In one case, in slavery, it was a straight up abduction of people. Okay? Just like what happened in Gaza. But in Gaza, the Palestinians are already at war with Israel. So I guess abducting the general population is a war crime. They're not POWs. So you have war crimes on both sides. In One Piece, Blackbeard's going into Impel Down. Now he's got his disgruntled group of followers who may be more dangerous or radical than him. One thing I noticed about Trump, okay? Yes, intelligent, well, good speaker, charismatic, can draw a big crowd, successful, wrestled, apprentice, business tycoon, but he's loyal, almost loyal to a fault. And I don't think that while Donald Trump is not a racist, clearly, while Donald Trump is honest, I believe Donald Trump is loyal to the people, not just poor people, but also rich people that he feels have his back. That's the most important thing I think is to Trump. With that said, I think that Donald Trump has blind spots because of his loyalty. Or I don't know how he acquired such a good sense of loyalty, but sometimes when you're loyal like that, what happens when the people that come out are more radical than him? What about, say, Donald Trump arrests the deep state, many of them, and then they become his backers who got out, went through January 6th, they become his office. They become his cabinet members. They become his new government. Now, these people have a fractured spirit, possibly. If they can't forgive and forget and operate on justice, they could be a worse tyranny than what's going on right now. And when that happens, then you get a counterweight because just like the general population does not fight in wars, the general person, when we understand that we've been wronged, we remember that. We may not act upon it. Only successful people act upon being wronged. Oh, you did something to me, I'm suing you. Oh, you went after my business, I'm suing you. Oh, you're going after my ex and you're putting false things on there, I'm going to take it to court because, you're not going to do this to me. But the general population, we kind of, not that we're weak, we kind of just go with the flow. But over time, that flow gets a pressure when we see someone's been wrong. And clearly, there's things that look like they're not just being done to Donald Trump and the January Sixers. And it looks like there's things that have been wrong to the Muslim community, calling them terrorists. There's things that have been wrong to African Americans. And when that happens, sometimes people sympathize with people so much that they begin to take on the characteristics of that downtrodden group, i.e., the rap. Everybody wants to be a rapper. Oh, it's cool. Or the things we've got with the Palestinians. Now you have liberal people converting to Islam, maybe not even really knowing what it even means. You know, not that Islam is a bad thing. I think it's good for any person to have a faith that is actually not hurting people and giving them spiritual, and giving them a mechanical, and giving them functional tools that can help them be successful in a way that they cause as little to no harm as possible in the world and the world around them. And it's not something you're beating somebody over the head with, you know. But that has happened in the past with particular religions, or even people talking about even anime. You know, this anime is better than this one. This is why. But we don't see the big picture. The big picture is that flow gains a pressure. And out of that flow, there may be someone from the deep state right now, or there could be a charismatic organizer or a politician who may even see these things, having more of a spiritual understanding of the flow of energy, right and wrong. And that'll be the downfall of the MAGA movement. If they choose to become the demon, to defeat the demon that they perceive, if they choose to go into the darkness to try to counter the darkness that they perceive on their enemies, it's like that saying, they say, beware of your enemy. Beware that you don't become your enemy as you try to defeat your enemy. As you defeat evil, beware that you don't become evil. Okay? Um, it's like the analogy of the Lord of the Rings. Sauron had a ring that controlled all the other rings. Okay? But that ring was a ring of power. And if a person would use that ring, then they would, in essence, not just be able to defeat the evil, but become a greater evil. Nothing good could ever come from using those arts, those dark arts. So, defeating your enemy and becoming your enemy, or what you represented, are dark arts. And I mean, I don't know if I want to go into talking about that type of arts, you know, but the reality, not delving into that. However, there is karma is like a flow or inertia. Okay, so in essence, it's almost like that prayer in the New Testament, Jesus' prayers. He says, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread," and so forth and so on. He's praying that his Father's kingdom come, not that his kingdom comes, because that so-called heavenly Father is like a justice principle. It is the light of consciousness. Okay. Um, most people, because the general population, don't really focus on too much per se, other than the lower level. They're not conscious of what the relations between this and that. I guess you could call that the laws of cause and effect, because we kind of have a disconnect living in a token economy and a false reality paradigm where we don't really have true survival skills anymore. And I know this may sound rough. Some people that have even been in an intelligence agency, special forces, can't survive if we didn't have electricity, if we didn't have many of the things that we take for granted right now. Okay, that's the harsh reality. In fact, even those who do, because the general population don't have it, they'll be targeted. Because we've been as a species incrementally taken away from our own survival mechanisms that made us natural people. We don't grow farms anymore. We are threatened to not even have farmland. We're taxed out of land ownership. So once you own a house, the property taxes raise every year. We've been incrementally made to be subservient and dependent on the government that seeks to depower its people so that we can be moved this way and that way. One thing about the MAG movement that's good is that we believe about trying to empower people again. But I don't think they really know what that really means. We don't have survival skills. Are they going to teach us survival skills? Or are they going to give us a movement that drains the swamp? And what happens when the swamp is drained? Well, someone's going to say, well, we should put some more water back in the swamp and make it a better place. But what happens when the people that cleaned up the swamp are the new swamp monsters? It's going to get dirty again, sediment's going to happen again, and you're just going to have new swamp creatures. And then out of that, you're going to have a new scenario. Not that my kingdom comes, another kingdom will come. And if they don't have the mind to have the consciousness or light of the universal consciousness of justice or God or whatever you want to call it, you have a redoing of it. The wheel continues to turn, like in Game of Thrones. Someone wanted to break the wheel, but they were in essence remaking the wheel. I'm talking about the Dragon Princess. I don't want to give up that story away, but I think a lot of people know about Game of Thrones. But that's what we've seen in history: rises and falls of civilizations, of cultures being replaced, and over time that group gets toxic. You know, it's like I said: first and second generations love the Lord, third and fourth don't. They say hard times produce strong men produce good times. Okay, weak men produce hard times. Okay, I'm sorry. Weak men make hard times, and weak men. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm a senior moment. What is it? How does it go? It says, strong men make good times. Okay. So hard times produce strong men. Strong men produce good times. Good times produce weak men. Weak men produce hard times. So the first and second generation love the Lord. The third and fourth don't. We're talking about seasons here, not times in reality. There are things that happen that precipitate a fall. There are things that happen that precipitate the devaluation of a currency. Okay? So, you see it in one piece, we're seeing a lifetime. I predict that Donald Trump will win this election. I've voted for every president since I could vote that won. In the last election, I predicted that Donald Trump would win, but I didn't vote that way because I figured the threat of such a situation of reprisal was so great. A person being a person of consciousness, I voted like my life depended on it. Okay, because not every person that got locked up on January 6th is without any sin in their life. You know, some of them have biases. I've seen it, man. I've been places, man. I used to travel, doing things that most people would never be able to do. And I've seen how people talk in their circles. I've seen how some of my own people talk in their circles. There comes a certain type of tribalism that happens. And what happens when that tribalism takes an extreme? I'm not talking about racism, really. It could be racism. It could be sexism. It could be classism. It could be the idea that our culture is better than other cultures again. Not thinking that maybe some people get comfortable in their own system, whether it be a dictatorship, whether it be communism, whether it be Sharia law, whether it be Islam, whether it be, you know, um, a republic, whether it be a democracy, but there are no true democracies. We have a republic here. But the idea that our way of life is better and we should have 300 plus embassies in other countries like we are doing a good thing. That's the state of the world. We have over 325 embassies in other countries. The United States does. Do you really think they're there for peace? What happens if every country puts an embassy in our country? How do we feel about that? I don't think Americans will like that too much. Okay? How do you think the Native Americans felt when their whole paradigm was shifted? They didn't have our concepts of, oh, we can own land. No, they felt that the land was a living organism. They had grazing areas that followed the flow of harvest and animals that they were grazing. Therefore, when the concept of the colonists came, when they were asking for land rights, this is like having a blind person sign papers he can't see or signing documents you have never read. The concept, the world paradigm has shifted for them. And well, now they gave over something they didn't even understand. Almost like in the Old Testament when Esau, the brother of Isaac, I'm sorry, Esau, the brother of Jacob, who became Israel, was hunting and living his life. His paradigm was hunting and killing animals and eating the flesh. And his brother Jacob, who later became Israel, was a farmer. He liked to dwell in tents. He liked to hang out and chill, kick back and relax. But he was a thinker about different things, not about how to survive off, hunting animals. So when Esau was hungry, because I guess he wasn't catching no animals, he was hungry. And he went to his brother, and his brother said, "Hey, um, I'll feed you." He's like, "Okay, I want some food." He said, "I'll feed you. Give me your birthright." And Esau was like, "Well, I'm just focused on the physical stuff. What's a birthright? Can I eat it?" He's like, "No." So he gave him his birthright. When people's minds can't wrap themselves around what's going on, okay? When you don't have cogitos registentia, like in the legal sense, you don't have conscious mind or state quality to understand what's going on, you're gonna have a rude awakening. Native Americans had a rude awakening. Now they have all these colonies operating as embassies on the East Coast, and now they're being pushed into extinction. Some of the colonists, like the pilgrims, sorry, were very positive to the Native Americans. But what about the ones that gave them blankets with smallpox? You see, that's what we're dealing with. There's been great advances in science and medicine. We're not getting all those. We're kind of a stunned level. And the new stuff they give us have so many backlash events. You can almost say some of this new technology is like smallpox, and we're just taking it in our body, becoming a pincushion, um, trying new things. Where we find out some people in these advancements have been keeping our blood samples from us and keep housing them in the United Nations for decades, being caught and doing it over and over again. So what I'm trying to say is there is justice in the world, but as we seek justice, let's make sure that there's true justice, okay? Not just a revenge that is a selfish thing, okay? That leads to a sentiment that can be something like karma that has inertia and can last over time. And when that season comes, the pressure comes and becomes a counterweight that ends up leading to your own destruction. The sword swings both ways. Blackbeard, baptism. January Sixers, a baptism of unholiness. Take it or let it alone. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Philosophy signing out.